1945. With the final fall of the last pocket of holdouts, Soviet troops move into the bunker, and they confirm not just the fall of the Third Reich, but the death of Adolf Hitler himself.
History books tell one story, but the bunker held another. As the world outside crumbled, hidden truths lived in silence. Before her death, Hitler's sister-in-law opened up, sharing what unfolded in those final hours underground. Her account changes everything we thought we knew about the fall of the Reich. A wedding in the shadow of war. The summer of 1944 felt tense and unusual. The war in Europe was not going well for Germany. The Allies had landed on the beaches of Normandy, and the Soviet army was advancing in the east. The Nazi Empire was weakening, causing fear and distrust among Hitler's inner circle. Despite all this, a confusing wedding happened during this tumultuous time that even the regime's closest supporters couldn't understand. The bride was Gretel Braun, the younger sister of Eva Braun, who was known for being connected to Adolf Hitler for a long time. The groom was Hermann Fegelein, a determined SS officer with close ties to Heinrich Himmler. Initially, the wedding seemed like a lavish celebration, with high-ranking Nazis in attendance, champagne flowing, and forced smiles of congratulations. Hitler even gave his blessing to the marriage, sending gifts and praising the couple. However, behind the glamorous facade, the wedding was not romantic at all. It was a strategic event, taking place as the Third Reich was crumbling. Hitler saw the marriage between Fegelein and Eva's younger sister as a way to bring Fegelein closer to him. He wanted to ensure loyalty as suspicion grew. Fegelein saw marrying Eva's sister as a way to gain status, protection, and a place among the elite. However, for Gretel, the marriage seemed more like a political move than a choice, as she was still young and appeared to be a pawn in a larger game. Many historians have questioned the extent of Gretel's freedom in deciding to marry. People who were observant during that time period knew that Hitler frequently meddled in the personal affairs of those close to him, particularly when it came to the Braun family. He had already established influence over Eva's life, and now it appeared he was intent on controlling Gretel's life too. The man she married had a questionable reputation.
Mrs. Winter, how long did you keep house for Hitler?
Frau Winter, wie lange haben Sie Hitler den Haushalt geführt?
15 Jahre.
Fegelein was seen as smart and ambitious, but rumors of cheating were always around him. Intelligence from the Allies revealed that he visited brothels and kept money in foreign accounts. Many in the SS thought he appeared more like someone getting ready to run away before the empire fell, rather than a committed soldier. Despite this, the wedding proceeded with fancy clothes and forced smiles. Gretel, young and insignificant in terms of power, became more of a symbol than a wife, a representation of Nazi unity during a time of turmoil in their empire. Shortly after the event, Gretel went back to Berghof, Hitler's mountain hideaway. Expecting a baby and alone, she was protected from the harsh conditions in the bunker in Berlin, but still felt the increasing hopelessness. The situation in the world was deteriorating rapidly, with cities on fire, armies advancing, and a feeling of impending disaster throughout the regime. Fegelein, who was now closely linked to Hitler, was right in the middle of the turmoil at the Central Command post in Berlin. Over time, loyalty became scarce as Hitler trusted fewer people. Fegelein's actions aroused suspicion due to his ambitious nature. Although he had married into Hitler's inner circle, his drive for success made him noticeable. Rumors started to spread and the facade of unity from the wedding began to crumble. In April 1945, Berlin was like a dead city. Russian tanks were surrounding the city, artillery fire was rocking the streets, and inside the Führer bunker, there was a feeling of hopelessness. Hitler wanted his closest companions to remain and battle until the end. Fegelein was one of them, but he made a different decision. Instead of remaining faithful, he vanished. A few days later, he was discovered not wearing his uniform, but in regular clothes, holding valuables and cash, getting ready to leave the chaos and escape. Hitler felt extremely betrayed by Fegelein, who deserted him during his final days filled with paranoia and anger. Desertion was seen as an act of treason, punishable by death. Fegelein was executed without any formalities such as a trial or public announcement. His body was not returned, and his name was quietly erased from all records. Gretel received bits of information about what happened to her husband. The marriage that was supposed to be honorable turned out to be shameful. She was pregnant with his child and only remembered him attempting to save himself and dying in the process. There was no grave to remember him by and no positive legacy to tell. All that was left were unanswered questions and silence surrounding his name. In pictures from when they were happier, Gretel and her sister Eva looked happy as they walked in gardens and enjoyed the sun at Hitler's retreat. But there was darkness behind those photos. The true experiences and emotions they went through during those final years were unknown to the world. Gretel's marriage was not a fairy tale, but a short and unhappy time, ending in secret and embarrassment. After the war ended, she never mentioned Hermann Fegelein again. The wedding, which was originally seen as a symbol of unity, ended up being just another part of a world breaking apart. It served as a reminder that even during joyous occasions, the shadow of war continues to linger. The man who vanished from the bunker. Berlin was on fire. The city was trembling from the Soviet guns and the streets were falling apart from the attacks. Below the destroyed buildings, Adolf Hitler's inner circle was trying to maintain control in a bunker. However, even in that secure location, loyalty was starting to falter and fear was spreading. One of the people stuck in the bunker during the city's final days was a man named Hermann Fegelein, whose decisions would have long-lasting consequences for his wife. In April of 1945, Fegelein was not just any officer. He was a high-ranking SS general who had a direct connection between Hitler and Heinrich Himmler. His position gave him a lot of power and special treatment. Apart from his job, he was also married to Gretel Braun, who was the younger sister of Eva Braun, Hitler's soon-to-be wife. This made him related to Hitler through marriage. Fegelein's career had been very successful, driven by his ambition, ruthlessness, and favoritism from top officials. However, as the end approached, Fegelein had to choose between staying loyal or trying to save himself. Initially, people were unsure about the whispers going around. Fegelein was not present in the bunker at the expected time. Some speculated that he had wandered off while intoxicated. Others believed it was more serious and thought he had abandoned his duty. As the city was being destroyed by bombs, rumors became reality. Information came in that Fegelein had been found outside the safety of the bunker. He was dressed in civilian clothes, carrying gold, jewels, and bags of money. It was clear he wasn't heading to another post or gathering reinforcements. He was trying to run away, hoping to leave Berlin before it completely fell. The news quickly spread secretly. Hitler was immediately and completely enraged. At that time, any desertion was seen as inexcusable. Being so closely connected to his inner circle, the betrayal hurt even more. The punishment was definite and would be the end. Fegelein was taken into custody and forcibly brought back to the underground bunker. Those who saw him later said he seemed confused, possibly intoxicated, and mentally defeated. Despite his mental state, he did not fight back. It appeared he understood his fate was sealed as soon as he was captured. After he was captured, what happened next is still a mystery. There was no trial, no official punishment, and no documentation confirming his death. Some say he was taken to the gardens and gunned, while others claim he was executed silently in the basement by SS guards. But all agree that Hermann Fegelein vanished without a trace. There are no graves or records of his death, and his name faded into obscurity as if he never existed. Gretel Braun heard the news quietly while she was away from Berlin at the Berghof, pregnant and with servants who couldn't talk openly. She did not receive a telegram or official message, only whispers that he was gone. She couldn't see his body or attend a funeral, just felt the loss of the man she married less than a year ago. With his departure, all her certainty was gone too. In his absence, people who knew him wondered quietly about what happened. They wondered why Hitler agreed to the marriage if he did not trust Fegelein. They also questioned why details of his execution were kept secret and never discussed. Additionally, they pondered why Gretel was left to deal with the aftermath alone, as her sorrow was overlooked amid other significant events. After the war, Gretel refused to talk about him again. The quietness she displayed went beyond grief. People close to her could see a difference in her. The composed and serene dignity she previously had was gone, replaced by something more delicate and tough. It seemed like her foundation had been shattered, and she could never be as strong as she used to be. She no longer believed in the promises of the government. She let go of the false beliefs that used to guide her life. Hermann Fegelein's story came to an abrupt end, leaving no closure, no burial, and no goodbye. His vanishing not only meant losing him physically, but also shattered trust, certainty, and caused great pain for the woman he left behind. For Gretel, his absence spoke louder than any words ever could. Sometimes the scariest story isn't what's written down, but what's not said. Fegelein's destiny was to remain quiet, causing Gretel to doubt everything she had previously believed. The last letter of Eva Braun's silent goodbye. The days were passing quickly, slipping away like sand through fingers. In the stifling silence of the Führer bunker, located deep underground in the ruined city of Berlin, Eva Braun sat in a dimly lit room. The walls shook as bombs fell above, turning Berlin into rubble. The once magnificent city was now a graveyard of destruction. The war was over, the empire destroyed, and the man she had aligned herself with was falling apart. However, Eva did not go away. She remained in the cold, concrete space of hopelessness. Eventually, on April 23rd, amidst the chaos around her, she took a pen and composed her last letter. The letter did not go through official channels. It wasn't stamped by the government or delivered by a soldier with pomp and circumstance. Instead, it was discreetly passed through the failing front lines by a trusted courier who could move between Hitler's inner circle and the outside world. When it got to Gretel Braun, Eva's younger sister, it did not contain professions of love, desperate pleas for escape, or assurances of survival. It only conveyed silence through written words. The ink was light and the paper was shaking, as if it knew the importance of the message. Gretel carefully opened it, her fingers trembling, and held it as if it was already part of the past. That one page would always be remembered by her. It wasn't just a message from her sister, it was a calm breath before the end. Historians who looked at pieces of Eva Braun's final letters found them to have a strangely calm tone. Eva did not talk about the city falling around her or express despair. Instead, she wrote quietly, saying more than what was written. She requested for Gretel to burn some documents, destroy official papers, and safeguard their private letters. It wasn't just a sentimental favor. It was a subtle warning in the midst of destruction. Eva knew which truths should remain hidden. The letter was unforgettable because of what it did not have. It did not have a goodbye or any mention of the future. There was no hope or plea for safety. Eva's writing showed she had given up on believing in a future. It reflected acceptance and a decision made. For Gretel, everything changed at that moment. She was able to interpret the unspoken message of the words. She grasped the hidden meaning in the pauses between sentences, the unspoken sadness beneath the surface. Gretel realized that her sister had given up the fight. Eva had decided not to keep fighting for life, but to give in to hopelessness completely. For a long time, people have viewed Eva Braun's last actions as a tragic display of loyalty. She is believed to have decided to remain with Hitler until the very end, to have passed away out of love for him, and to have entered death alongside him. Many causes, including books, movies, and museums, have perpetuated this narrative, turning it into a romanticized tale of dedication. However, for Gretel, as she held onto that delicate piece of paper, the reality seemed to be different. The unspoken message in Eva's words seemed to convey a louder truth than any story ever could. Contrary to the popular belief of love dominating the atmosphere in the bunker, it was fear that permeated their surroundings. Eva was never photographed sitting at the desk in the underground chamber. There were no cameras or recordings capturing her there. The only things left are memories from her sister and faint ink scratches. To Gretel, those scratches held more weight than explosions and were more haunting than collapsing buildings. They originated from a quiet room where life and death were already mixed together. After the war, Gretel followed her sister's request and did not show the letter to anyone. She kept it a secret, like Eva wanted, and kept it away from the world. However, she remembered every detail of the letter. The words, pauses, and silence stayed with her. As time passed, the words in the letter became more prominent in her mind. They echoed loudly and revealed a truth that was different from what was known publicly. In the final days, it was not love that kept Eva by Hitler's side, but rather feelings of helplessness, resignation, and fear. The letter indicated that Eva had already given up on herself before the city was destroyed by bombs. When Berlin was conquered and the war came to an end, people thought it was all over. But for Gretel Braun, the suffering was just starting. The truth about her sister. There is an eerie quality to a secret that outlasts a war. It's not the type of secret held by military leaders or government officials, but the kind that belongs to someone who witnessed history unravel up close. Gretel Braun held on to such a secret. She had spent her life among the intense and oppressive environment of authority, fear, and grand displays. She had glimpsed the personal sides of Germany's rulers and had witnessed the illusions of power take shape in gatherings filled with smoke, only to crumble in the ruins of Berlin. For over 40 years, Gretel chose not to speak. She stayed quiet while the world told its version of the story. However, secrets have a tendency to stay hidden, and when she started to get sick in the 1980s, she confronted what she had kept hidden for so long. Even though her body was failing, her mind was still clear enough to remember the truth. The story she had kept inside for years was difficult, but she ultimately decided to write it down. The story was not intended to become famous. Gretel did not reach out to a reporter or attempt to publish a book. Instead, she wrote a letter to a trusted person as a way to share her final thoughts and set things right. This gesture was not motivated by money or a desire for recognition. It was a simple act to ensure the truth was known before she passed away. The letter's contents would disturb many people who read it later on. It was circulated privately and discussed quietly by researchers and family members, shattering the image that had been crafted over many years. The story of Eva Braun, her sister, had been portrayed as one of loyalty and romance, with a woman willingly choosing to die alongside her beloved man. The suicide in the bunker had been depicted as a sad act of devotion, a symbol of doomed love. However, Gretel's letter revealed a different side of the story. She explained that Eva's decision to remain with Hitler was not based on love, romance, or loyalty. Gretel described her sister as feeling trapped by fear, dependence, and isolation. The bunker where she spent her final days was like a concrete tomb in a crumbling city, filled with smoke, despair, and deteriorating mental states. By the time April 1945 rolled around, Hitler was no longer the powerful leader the world had once feared. According to Gretel, he was a mere shadow of his former self. He was thin, restless, and unpredictable, often pacing for hours and talking to imaginary enemies, issuing orders that made no sense. The once formidable leader had become a shattered man, trapped in his fantasies. Eva, his companion, was also unable to break free from his influence. Berlin was in a state of collapse, with the city on fire and no escape route available. Rescue was no longer an option, and Eva was feeling weak and emotional during those last days. She cried frequently, struggled to sleep, and her voice lacked its usual power. In a letter, she was described as someone who had accepted her fate not out of bravery, but because she felt there was no other choice. It wasn't courage, but rather a sense of resignation. Gretel believed that Hitler had a strong hold on Eva, not physically, but mentally. Eva felt trapped by his control and reliance on him. She thought she couldn't leave or live without him. It wasn't love keeping her with him, but fear. Gretel portrayed Eva as someone who believed staying with Hitler might serve a greater purpose, even if it meant finding redemption through death or escaping from shame. The letter included personal memories that were particularly emotional. Gretel remembered how Eva always dreaded being forgotten. She was concerned that the women would be overlooked in history, with only men being remembered. While in the bunker as everything fell apart above, Eva expressed fear that her story would not be accurately shared. Gretel always remembered those words, which were not requests for assistance, but instead predictions of the future. Gretel made it clear that Eva did not want to die and had wished for a normal life. Eva had dreams of becoming a photographer, traveling, and writing, but those aspirations disappeared when she got involved in Hitler's world. Over time, Gretel saw her sister become quieter, lose her laughter, and turn into a hollow version of herself. The lively young woman who used to dance at parties and laugh under the sky was no more. Eva's personality was emptied by fear and control, and even her death ended up being a part of someone else's narrative. The letter was honest and did not try to justify anything. It also did not seek sympathy or offer excuses. Instead, it revealed the hidden truth that Gretel had kept to herself. This truth shattered the fake illusion of romance and loyalty that had been portrayed for many years. Those who read the letter after Gretel's passing felt sorrow, not remorse. They were expecting a lack of emotional connection, but instead found a profound understanding. Gretel's words exposed the official account of the events as a fabricated tale meant to provide solace or to cover up the unexplainable. The letter has not been fully revealed to the public, It is currently held by private individuals. While some parts of the letter have been discussed in academic writings, the complete text remains undisclosed. What is significant is not the physical presence of the letter, but the truth it contains. This truth compels us to re-examine the last moments of Ava, not as a romantic tale of loyalty, but as a portrayal of a person feeling trapped. It is a narrative of hopelessness, of being voiceless, of a narrative that was on the brink of disappearing forever. In conclusion, Gretel Braun revealed a new perspective to the world, the final silence beneath the ruins. In April 1945, towards the end, the underground fortress, once a command center, lost its power and turned into a dark place. It was no longer where plans were made and orders were given. Instead, it became a prison for the remaining believers of a lost cause. Berlin was destroyed above the bunker, with the city engulfed in flames and smoke. Buildings were crumbling under artillery fire, streets were on fire, and the ground was covered in rubble. The proud capital had been reduced to ruins. The noises of destruction continued without pause, with shells dropping, guns going off, and the earth trembling. Inside the concrete walls, there was a heavy silence beneath all the chaos. The hallways that were once bustling with activity were now quiet, filled only with the sound of empty footsteps. The people who used to give orders and be loud now spoke in whispers in the corners. They were waiting, not for victory, but for the end, aware that death was approaching. The atmosphere had changed since the days of celebrations and victories. There were no flags, no applause, no enthusiastic speeches. Instead, there was a feeling of fear. Everyone present understood the significance of what they were witnessing: the downfall of a government, the end of a powerful empire. However, no one dared to openly acknowledge it. Anxiety made them keep their thoughts to themselves. The Soviet army was getting closer by the hour. Those who were once powerful were falling apart. Everything seemed to be falling apart. Gretel Braun, who was Eva's sister, never went into the dark underground place filled with hopelessness. She did not see it herself, but she learned about it later from people who had experienced it. One of those people was a doctor who had treated her during her pregnancy. After the war, he visited her not for any personal benefit, but to share the weight of his troubling memories. He had witnessed terrible things that haunted him and wouldn't allow him peace. He did not embellish the story he shared. It wasn't filled with excitement or grandeur. It was simple and somber, which made it all the more impactful. He described how the bunker deteriorated, leading to distrust and suspicion among the inhabitants. The established hierarchy crumbled, with the leaders appearing weary and downtrodden. In the middle of everything was Hitler. The doctor did not see him as a strong leader anymore. Instead, he saw a man losing touch with reality. Hitler's powerful speeches were no more, replaced by incoherent mutterings in dark hallways. He tried to give orders to armies that were no longer there. He ranted about conspiracies that did not exist. His hands trembled and he struggled to walk steadily. He was no longer someone to be afraid of. Instead, he evoked feelings of pity. People who saw him mentioned that he would talk to empty spaces, walk in circles, and have arguments with thoughts that no one else could comprehend. He barely slept or ate. He would gaze at maps that were now irrelevant, searching for battles that had already been lost. The man who once determined the destiny of millions now resided in a state of confusion and shadows. He had turned into an empty shell, only existing due to his daily habits and the fearful loyalty of those who were scared to abandon him. Ava Braun decided to go into the bunker alone. She was aware of the danger, but as time passed, she started to lose something inside her. The doctor informed Gretel that Ava was becoming more withdrawn. She spent a lot of time alone in small rooms, walked around the halls, avoided eye contact, and wrote letters that were never sent. She no longer believed in anything outside of the walls she was confined to. Her attractiveness, her youth, her brightness, all of it was overshadowed by overwhelming despair. Her eyes showed no sign of hope anymore. Instead, they held onto something indescribably heavy. One night, a person approached her quietly and presented her with an opportunity to escape. The offer was spoken softly, not announced loudly. It was uncertain if there was a path to freedom or not. There was a chance it could have been unsuccessful. However, she was given a decision to make. Ava declined the offer. It wasn't because she had faith in her destiny or because she was courageous. It was because she no longer thought she could survive. She had been hiding in the darkness for too long. Her resistance had turned into resignation. She was prepared to face whatever was to come. When the final moment came, it was not dramatic. There was no big scene or powerful last words. Hitler and Eva entered a room together and the door closed. Shortly after, a quiet noise could be heard. The people outside did not react or open the door. The event was not considered heroic, it was just anticipated. Their remains were taken outside into the wet April weather. No formal funeral, no honors, no final farewells were given. They were cremated in a quick hole dug in the ground. The fire had a hard time staying lit in the rain, with weak flames and a hissing sound. Ultimately, the two individuals who had a major impact on the century were turned to ashes, washed away by the smoke and rain. The doctor stopped talking in the story and took a moment to reflect. He had seen many deaths during the war, but this one was different. He described it as the calmest death he had ever seen. Despite the chaotic sounds of war outside, inside the bunker, there was acceptance and peace. It was a moment of surrender, not of fighting. Gretel did not shed tears for Hitler. She did not grieve his death. Her sadness was not for him, but for the false stories that came afterwards. She was upset by the efforts to portray his death as honorable and romanticize Eva's final moments. Gretel understood that fear controlled Hitler in his last days. Fear of the enemy, fear of facing justice, and fear of life without power. Her admission destroyed the carefully constructed narrative that some people tried to create. She admitted that the end did not involve bravery or rebellion. Instead, it was a result of collapse, of people feeling trapped, defeated, and drained of energy. The remaining individuals were not loyal fighters. They were scared, weary, and stuck in their deception. The bunker wasn't a strong fortress, but rather a burial ground. It entombed not just bodies, but also shattered dreams. What do you think about Hitler's sister-in-law? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more celebrity gist. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.